Alright. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Late Night Tips. In tonight's episode we're going to take a look at using the Electribe E2 as an effects processor. Let's get right into it. So I used to own the Electribe E2 some time ago, and I used it mostly for drums and some synthesizers, but I also used it to play live with a musician, with a drummer. And it was a really cool takeaway outdoor device that you could take with you anywhere, battery operated, and just jam on it. However, there were a couple of things I was really frustrated about with this device, and I recorded a video about that. You can check it out in here. And as a result, I ended up selling it and going for the analog RYTM and the analog 4, and I never looked back. However, some time ago, a good friend of mine, Druid, mentioned that he uses his E2 as an effects processor for live performance. This really got me interested, so I decided to record a little video presenting how this device can be used as an effects processor. So how it's all laid out in here, I have my favorite app, Samplr, on the iPad running into the Electribe E2, and then everything else is synced up via MIDI to the Octatrack, because we'll be using the Octatrack later to trigger some effects on the Electribe. So for me, there are three interesting ways I can use the Electribe E2 as an effects processor, and the first one is to use it in performance mode, and basically having the sound only go through the Electribe when you play, when you perform using the pads. Let's check it out. So here's the basic beat from the analog RYTM. And the iPad is not playing at all. I need to activate it by pressing a pad. So how it's set up, it's very simple. Every single track in here is set up to audio in. I basically go to the oscillator and select 409 audio in for every single one. I have the filter wide open, but I do have different effects on each track. This one is completely dry, as you can see. In here I got radio EQ. In here I'm gonna have, what do I have in here? Delay. In here I'm going to have ring modulator, in here ring delay, which is pretty cool, and then phaser in here. And the envelope on every single track is completely deactivated, which means that this track is only going to play when I press the pad. It doesn't play. And that's pretty cool. I can also use a different track with an envelope in here, which is set to something like that. And it's going to play for some time, and that works. And obviously certain tracks are also set up to send to Master Effects, and using the Master Effects I have a looper in here, which means that I can do stuff like that, but still send normal audio through if I want to. So obviously this approach is very hands-on, it's a performance mode, you need to be pressing those things to be hearing your audio. Well, you can avoid that by recording a sequence on one of those tracks, for example in here.
Some folks just want to get high.
So in here, if you look at this track, I just have a sequence in here that I recorded. and now it's feeding through, and I can add different effects. This is not always an ideal solution, especially for the studio, considering that it only has a single output. But still, you know, especially for live performance, when you don't mind a bit of phasing or overlapping of the signal, this could be a pretty cool solution. So that's a lot of fun. You can obviously use the filter on every single track.
Some folks just wanna get high.
And obviously you can use the LFO, you can just go crazy with whatever you have in here. You can record automation, so you can really get some crazy things going with this setup. The second option, which allows you to perform on all the other instruments and not worry about pressing the buttons and the pads on the Electribe E2, is just recording a sequence. So if you go to track number 1 in here and just put a sequence in here, something like that, that's not going to work really well unless that's the result you're after.
Some folks just wanna get high.
Because you're going to hear some gating, even if you activate the amplitude. Well, this might be the effect that you're after, which is pretty cool, but if you're not, then this is not going to work. Instead, what you need to do, just play the sequence and record the sequence continuously. So now it's feeding through all of those tracks. And what you need to do is just go to your mute in here. And if you unmute all of them, they're all gonna play.
Some folks just wanna get high.
That's a little bit too much, but what you can do is just select one of those tracks.
Some folks just wanna get high.
Delay, ring modulator, ring delay, phaser, or master. So the third way I can set this up is to use the Octatrack or any other external sequencer to open up the gate, the track on a given effect. And you can trigger any effects in the sequence however you like, and you don't have to use CCs in order to achieve that, because the Electribe is set up in the way that every single track receives MIDI on a predefined channel. So track 1 receives on channel 1, track 16 receives on channel 16, and so on. And it's hardwired like that. What you can do in your sequencer is you can set up a MIDI channel that you want to activate and put a MIDI note in here. Very, very simple. So in here on the Octatrack, I have my MIDI track 6 set up to channel 3, so it's going to activate audio track 3 in here, and I have a note in here, C4, infinite note. I don't care what note that is, it just needs to trigger the gate and open the gate. This is what it sounds like. So I have the delay in here. Pretty cool. And if I go to pattern number 5, I don't have a note in here on track 6. I have a note on MIDI channel 4 on track 8 in here. And it's triggering track 4 with the ring modulator. And I can go crazy with that. I can set up a sequencer to work in this particular setup and just open any given track at any given point. And I can also pre-program this in a sequence to trigger a given effect at a given point in a song. And there's obviously so much more you can do with this setup. You can go crazy with the filter, you can record automations, and obviously you don't have to use all of the tracks for audio through. You can use tracks 9 to 16, for example, for audio effects, and still have 8 tracks for your drums and whatnot. So this is a really powerful application, I believe, of the Electribe E2, where you can really have it as a pre-programmed, simple effects processor with hands-on control and with really intuitive interface. The challenge for me in this scenario is that the quality of some of those effects is not really good in my opinion, especially the reverb. Alright, so that's it for this episode of Late Night Tips. If you have any questions or suggestions regarding this setup, or maybe there's a fourth application that I forgot to mention, make sure to let me know in the comment. If you want to support the channel, you can check out my EP on Bandcamp, and if you're on YouTube, links below. And if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to catch more tutorials, more jams, and more opinions. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night and take care.